As you may notice, she's expecting. So it's a real big effort that she's come in today. I'm really grateful that you come in. She's the Executive Director of the Australia Korea Business Council and has been for the last 3.5 years. She's also a very accomplished speaker of Korean, having studied Korean language here in Melbourne, but also in Seoul National University and Yonsei University. She's also worked in POSCO in Korea, South Korea, and has a lot of experience dealing with Korea and with Korean business, which she's going to tell us all about today. So you'll speak for about 30-40 minutes, or as long as you can go. See how you go. See how you go. And then I'll let you take the floor.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Awesome. Firstly, thank you so much to Andy for inviting me here, and thank you all so much for taking the time out of your busy day to be here today. It's really warming to see such a big reception here and so many students interested in hearing what I have to say. So thank you very much from the outset to you guys. As Andy said, my name is Liz Griffin and I'm the Executive Director of the Australia Korea Business Council. And I'm very honoured to be here today because I was calculating the other day, it's been 13 years since I was sitting in your position, in your seats. So as Andy said, I did Korean language at Monash 13 years ago. And I'm really excited to share my journey with you today. Can everyone in the back hear me okay? Is it okay if I don't use the microphone? Cool. For today's presentation as well, I will allow some time at the end for Q&A, but I'm a big believer, I prefer a two-way presentation rather than me just talking at you for 30 minutes. So please ask me lots of questions, raise your hand or just yell out if you've got a comment or a question to make, and that will help me along the presentation as well. In terms of the Australia Korea Business Council, I'll just give you a quick overview of what that is and who we are and what we do. We're a member-based organisation that is tasked with promoting trade and investment between Australia and Korea. So we have about 80 members across Australia, of which Monash University is one of our members, and we help our members succeed and thrive in Korea. So predominantly that's through events, but we also do some cultural awareness training and boardroom briefings, and one big conference each year to help our members better understand what the trends and opportunities are in the Australia-Korea bilateral relationship. I'm just going to start by showing you a video, which is, it's called the Australia Korea Business Council, Korea Australia Business Council, and that's our counterpart in Korea. So each year we come together for a 2-day conference to talk about the latest trends and opportunities in the relationship. And this video just gives you a quick overview and summary of what that conference looks like and the kind of people that attends that conference. So last year we held it in Busan in South Korea, and this year we'll be holding it in Sydney.
That we want to discuss today and looking at future opportunities between our two countries, and looking at new opportunities in new areas like renewable energy and biotech, transport.
호주 기업인들을 모시게 된 데는 서로가 다른 매력을 느끼시게 하고 양국 간 경제 협력을 또 하나의 모멘텀을 만들어 보고자 하는 이유에서 마련하게 되었습니다.
On the occasion of the visit of the delegates of the Australia-Korea Business Council, the commemorative ceremony will begin. A wreath will now be laid by the Council Chairman, the Honourable Mark Vaile.
Cool. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of an insight into some of the work that we do at the Australia Career Business Council, and some of the people that attend. And hopefully in a couple of years' time you'll be attending that conference, or perhaps even speaking at that conference, working for an Australian or Korean company with an interest in trade and investment. There's some nice background music there. Okay, so for today's topic, I've thought I'd cover the following points. So why Korean? Why did I choose Korean? Learning Korean, I think there's only one way, and I'm keen to share that with you today and encourage you to take up that method. My experience working in Korea, so as Andy said, I did an internship at POSCO in 2009, so I'll share some of my experiences working for a Korean company. Then where to find a job, so hopefully I can help you find or start to find a job if you are interested in the Australia-Korea relationship, some of the trends of the bilateral relationship and some potential companies that you could approach for jobs. And then tips and tricks to help you get a job related to Korea. So how does that sound? Does that sound alright? Yeah?
Sounds good.
Sounds good. Finish with a Q&A, but as I say, please hit me with questions as we go along. So in terms of my journey, I first started learning Korean in year 8 at school. And I will remember the day that I came home with that slip of paper that I needed to take to my parents. And it said, at that time we were already learning French, and it said, would you like to study Korean or Italian as a third language? And I'd come home, presented my slip of paper, and I'd already checked the Italian box, because I knew where Italian would take me. I was going to go to Italy, I was going to meet this beautiful Italian man, we were going to eat lots of pasta, it was going to be a great lifestyle in Europe. I had it all sorted out. But then I didn't have to hand in that slip of paper for about 2 or 3 weeks. And during those 2 or 3 weeks, I just got curious. At my school that I attended, there was a room that was the Korean classroom that was decorated with the Korean fans, the Changu, the Hangul, and the Korean teacher was a little bit wild and wacky. And I had no idea where Korea was. I had no idea about anything about Korea. But because of the laughs that I could hear coming from her classroom, I decided to change my slip of paper from Italian to Korean. And without that decision, I wouldn't be here today. So I've been on this fantastic journey since that day that I first started learning Korean in year 8. The next kind of hurdle for me was whether or not to do it for VCE. Has anyone here done it for VCE? Yeah. And your Korean background? Yeah. So that was my experience as well. So when I was studying at school, the numbers of students at my school who studied Korean reduced quite substantially each year. So in year 8 it started off at like 20, then it went year 9 there was about 10 people, blah blah blah, until in year 11 there was 2 of us left, and I knew that the other girl wasn't going to study it in year 12, so I was faced with this decision: do I continue studying Korean or do I give it up? But I chose to study it for VCE, and perhaps not too dissimilar to what it was maybe a couple of years ago when you did it, there were 62 students in the room, and 61 of them were Korean background. So I'll leave it to you to guess who that one non-Korean background student was.
Is that in Melbourne?
That was in Melbourne, yeah.
Is that school still doing Korean?
No,
basically?
they're doing Chinese, because how can we compete? Let's just say I didn't do very well because I was competing against Korean nationals, which was fine. I knew that in advance that I wouldn't do so well, but I was really keen to keep up my Korean language study anyway. So that was a decision that I had to make, and I'm glad that I did make that decision to continue to study. I then went to university and studied studied Korean at Monash University, and I did that alongside a commerce degree at Melbourne University. And then in 3rd year, I applied to study at Yonsei University as an exchange student. Which brings me back to the point number 2, learning Korean. I think there's only one way to do that, alongside learning at Monash with Andy and his team, of course. And that one way of studying or learning Korean is to go to Korea. So to give you an example, in Korea, when you're studying at these language institutes, there's 6 levels. So you start at level 1 and then you go through to level 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then once you graduate level 6, you're pretty fluent, and you're deemed that you can then go into, or you can then study Korean subjects with Korean local students in Korean. So you're pretty fluent. And so after learning Korean in Australia through high school and then 3 years at Monash University, I think that was about 8 years in total, I was at level 2.5. So that was equivalent to 15 weeks living in Korea. So that eight years got me 15 weeks equivalent in Korea. And then over the next 12 months in Korea, I finished level 5. That just goes to show as well, when you're studying in Australia, which is fair enough, you do it at a very slow pace, and you might do a couple of hours a week or a couple of hours a day. But in Korea, when you're living in Korea, you're living and breathing it. So every day I did 4 hours language formal study, and then I did about 3 or 4 hours of extra study on top of that as homework. But then when I went to the Pyeongjam or to dinner or to wherever, you were living and breathing it, so you had no escape. So the rate of your Korean language learning just escalates. So that goes to my point, which is takeaway point number 1. If you can, and not everybody can, but if you can, I strongly encourage you to do a semester abroad at one of the Korean universities. And on exchange, you get to experience Korean culture and gain cultural awareness. So it's not only about the Korean language, but it's also about kind of the softer skills. How do the Koreans think? What do they like? What do they don't like? What can you say? What can you not say? How should you act? How should you behave? You learn all of this stuff from living in Korea. You can't learn that from a textbook necessarily. And for me, to get to know a culture, you need to live and breathe it. You can't just read a textbook and say, yeah, I know Korean culture. So I strongly encourage you to go to Korea and undertake a semester abroad. Has anybody done that? Cool. And did you enjoy it? Yeah? Is anyone thinking about it? Yeah? A few people? Yeah? Cool. And I looked up some of the partners that Monash University has, and it's the best universities available to you. You've got the Sky Universities, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. You've got KAIST and you've got SKKU. Like, these are the top universities in Korea. So you have, as Monash University student, you have an amazing opportunity at your fingertips, but you just need to take it up. And it's not, when you go over to Korea to do this semester abroad, it's not just the language program that you will do, you can do other cultural programs as well. So it is an all-encompassing program, and you can make it what you like. So I did Korean language, but I also did and got credit for one subject, which was Taekwondo. So there I was doing my little Taekwondos next to some of the Korean local students, and that was a fantastic class for me because it allowed me to make some friends with the local Korean students, and I got credit, which was great. The New Colombo Plan is a fantastic initiative. I'm not sure if you talk about that or if you promote that, but that's a fantastic initiative available, I think, to a lot of students at Monash University, and I strongly encourage you to explore what the opportunities are through that program. I think there's 2 streams, the Scholar and the Mobility. So look that up if you don't know about it already, but that will provide you with a whole heap of opportunities as well. And then the last opportunity there is through the Hamer Scholarship Program. Now, this is a Victorian government initiative. Ellen knows a lot about it as well, so you can ask Ellen for her insights on this program. But basically, you get paid $15,000 to go to Korea for 6 months to study Korean. To me, that's a pretty good deal. I did it, and I loved it. And it's a fantastic opportunity to go to Korea without the burden of having to pay for it. But it's a really great opportunity to be an ambassador for the Victorian government and to also increase your Korean language skills. So look that one up as well. I think that one is only available to graduates, maybe. I think, there might be an age limit that applies, so that one might be for a couple of years' time.
21. Over 21.
Yeah, over 21.
Yeah.
But there's some fantastic initiatives around and programs around that, you just have to do a little bit of research here and there to find them.
We got money as well. Monash University
Oh, yeah,
Korean
that's
Studies.
right.
We offer money.
Yeah.
We offer money to go.
To go.
Send students to Korea.
It's great. You get paid to go overseas.
Paid. Yeah,
Can I-
free money.
can I- yeah.
No,
Can I do it again?
Monash Korean Studies.
Take it up, guys. It's so much fun. Okay. This is a quote. It's not super. I feel like I'm kind of preaching to the converted here, but I thought on Friday the AKBC is doing an initiative with some of the universities around Australia. I think Andy's coming to this on Friday, and one of the quotes that we got from one of the universities was from sharing their experiences of their students who went to Korea. And I thought this was quite a good quote to include. As for promoting Korea as a study destination, students were enamoured with how modern, bustling and cosmopolitan Seoul is. While being cheaper than Japan and more spacious than Hong Kong, and being more spacious than Hong Kong. The booming economy and being on the cutting edge of many different fields would attract more young people if only more students knew how modern and exciting it is. So this is something that I struggle with in business as well, is that when most people look or think about Korea, they think about North Korea, or they think about K-pop, which is fine, which is a great entry point. But there's more to Korea than just K-pop and North Korea. There's so much potential for the relationship between Australia and Korea. We just need to encourage more people to go there, to travel there and to experience it. And often once people do go there, they absolutely love it and fall in love. I think it was Michael, you said that for you, what was it? Korea is Singapore with a soul,
With soul.
which I thought was really nice. That was a really cute little saying, which is very true. So does anyone know about SKY? Yeah, so you know S stands for Seoul National University, K stands for Korea, and Y stands for Yonsei. Now I'm going to try and convince you to go to one of these universities. I personally went to Yonsei University and to Seoul National University, and I was a little bit younger, so I enjoyed Yonsei University immensely. Seoul was also great, but I was a little bit older when I went, so not so much in the party mode, but I strongly encourage you to go to one of these universities if you do get the chance to go to Korea. And I'm going to explain how much fun you're going to have when you get there and why. So in Korea, when you go to university, similar to, I guess, us doing VCE or whatever you've done, you have to sit a college entrance exam. And in Korea, this is called the Suneung. And unlike the VCE where we do it over a number of days, in Korea you do it over one day, which is the second Thursday of each November. And basically from the moment that you're born in Korea, that might be a bit of an exaggeration, your parents are trying to prepare you for this exam. Because the outcome of this exam depends on if you can get into university, and if so, which university you can get into. And if you can get into one of these three universities, again, a little bit of an exaggeration, but your life is set. It's a lot easier to get a job. It's a lot easier to find a wife or a partner or a husband. And pretty much your life, your job prospects increase, your marriage prospects increase. Everything becomes a lot easier if you have the name and reputation of one of these universities behind you. And so from this day, you have immense pressure to succeed and to do well on this exam. So much so that everyone in Korea understands the importance of this exam. So on this day, businesses start 1 hour later to make sure that the traffic and the roads are clear for the students so that they can get to their exam rooms. Planes in the sky are rerouted to try and avoid the noise disturbance. And if you're running late, you just call a police escort and they'll pick you up and take you to your exam. This is how important this day is in Korea. And these numbers show how difficult it is to get into one of these universities. So each year about 650,000 students take this exam. Of those, 250,000 students are accepted into a Korean university, and only 13,000 of those are accepted into a SKY university. So I did the maths earlier, that's 2%. So imagine how you feel as a university student, if you're a Korean university student and you've been accepted into a Sky University. The last 18 years of your life, you have been studying so hard. This Sunung, the college entrance exam, is the only thing on your mind, really. And then you get into Sky. So what are you going to do when you get into a Sky University? It's time to party, guys. Made it. So that's why when I went to Yonsei and Seoul, these students had so much fun. They let loose, they were doing things that they were interested in, they were just having a ball. They just absolutely loved it because essentially they'd done the hard yakka, they'd got into one of these universities and now they could finally relax and enjoy life. So that's why I encourage you to go to Sky, but of course any of the universities will be fantastic that Monash has got partnerships with. Okay, any questions so far? All good? Do you want to say the word? No? You're okay? Okay, my experience working in Korea. So, as I've mentioned, I interned at POSCO in their investor relations department. So this was back in about 10 years ago, that's showing my age. And during this time, I did a homestay with one of the managers in my team and also his family. So at this time at POSCO, I think there was 2 foreigners working in the whole company. Got a huge building and there was only 2 foreigners, so they were very excited to have a Western person work for them. And likewise, I was extremely excited to be working for their company. So I thought I'd take you through a few of the key differences that I felt in terms of the business culture in Korea and at POSCO. And the first one is the beginning of the workday and the commute time. In Korea, or in Australia, I guess my commute time to work every day is about 45 minutes, which I think is fair. That's about standard. In Korea, the day started for me, or I left home every day at 6:30. That's because the average commute time in Korea, I think there was a statistic or some study done last year that said that the average commute time was 96 minutes. So it takes you 96 minutes in the morning and then 96 minutes in the evening to get home. So that's 3 hours out of your day that you're spending commuting. And if you think about it in terms of numbers, Australia has a population of 25 million? Korea has a population of 50. But then within Seoul, the population's about 25 mil. So you have Australia's population in Seoul. Right? So then you can start to think, all right, well, how does everyone fit in there? We've got apartments. But then everyone's now starting to move outside into these satellite cities. And so most people these days who can't afford to live in the heart of Seoul, which is the majority of people, are living in these satellite cities, and that's extending the commute time. So me and my host dad, we'd leave home at about 6:30, 7 o'clock every morning, and we'd get to work at 8:30 every morning. And that was just normal life in Korea. Everyone's used to it, and that's just the way it is. So that was the first difference. The second difference was greeting your boss upon arrival, and this was something that I absolutely love about Korean culture, and I think that there should be more of this in Australia. So unlike Australia, where when I get to work I just dump my bag down, I might go get a coffee and then make a cup of tea or turn on my computer or whatever. The first thing that I did when I was working in Korea, I put my bag down and then I went straight to the boss's office and I said, "Good morning, how are you? Hope you're well. I'm really looking forward to today's work. I'm here." Great. And that was a really nice thing. Everybody did that and everybody acknowledged people, and I feel like in today's society, people just don't acknowledge everyone. But in Korea, it's so important. So I absolutely loved that aspect of Korean culture. You arrive and then you say hi to the boss. Let him know that you're here, you're excited for the day. The next one was nunchi. Does anyone know what nunchi is? Yeah? Oh, sorry, what have I done? Gek, do you want to explain what nunchi is?
Like when you just have a bit of like common sense, like a little bit of,
Yeah.
you understand like the environment.
Yeah, absolutely. So I didn't have any nunchi. So I was, as an intern, I didn't have a whole heap of responsibilities, as you can probably understand and acknowledge, and so I was always up for a chat. I'd go just trying to look for things to do or people to talk to. I'd be up out of my desk, going to the water cooler, getting a cup of tea, or just having a chat to Miss Park or Mr. Lee on my way, and just trying to kind of make life a bit more fun. But then someone came to me as Nunchi, like everyone's kind of watching you. Everyone's kind of like, is she behaving in the appropriate way? Is she following social norms? And obviously I didn't have any Nunchi. And someone came up to me after a few days and was just like, Liz, like, people are noticing that you're kind of not at your desk too much. You don't look very busy. You might just want to like reconsider that. And so basically the message was that because I wasn't at my desk working, that reflected poorly on my team, because that showed that my team wasn't very busy, so we mustn't be very important. And so if I'm not busy, my team's not busy. And so it was really important for me to be a team player and to, even though I might not be busy, is to look really busy so that it reflects quite well upon my team. So that was just a nice little anecdote that I thought just showed to have Nunchi, to be aware and to act as you're expected to act in Korea.
What did they have you doing, if I may ask?
Yeah.
Were you translating or?
I did a little bit of, my Korean skills at that stage were very basic. I did a little bit of English, like helped them with drafting English documents, making English phone calls. But they gave me a project to look at some of their investments in Australia and basically what the opportunities were between Korea and Australia in terms of mining. So for those of you who might not be familiar with POSCO, POSCO is I think the 4th largest steel maker in the world. And to make steel you need iron ore and coal. And Korea has no iron ore and no coal, so they import it from Australia. So they have quite a few investments in Australia to do with iron ore and coal. And so they were just asking me to write a report on market updates relating to iron ore and coal and other resources. So it was an 8-week project, which was quite flexible. So it wasn't, as an intern, it wasn't very important strategic decision making that I was doing, but at the same time I learned a whole lot of heaps of other valuable skills.
So how did you get the internship opportunity while you were in Korea, Liz?
Unfortunately the program doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
Because I think it's been superseded by the New Colombo Plan. But it was through the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, and they had a program called Australia-Korea Internship Program, where they sent, I think, about 8 to 12 students to Korea every year. But when the New Colombo Plan program was introduced, I think that's when they stopped it. So that's why you got to look at the New Colombo Plan, because I think they help you facilitate internships as well. Any other questions so far? Okay, lunchtimes. Lunchtimes was really fun for me. But again, it was very different to how it operates in Australia. So in Australia, again, I either work from my desk, or I might go out, meet a friend, or go down to the cafe, grab a sandwich, and then come back. But in Korea, it was slightly different in that at usually it was 12 o'clock or 12:30, the big boss would come through and he'd be like, right, is everybody ready for lunch? And you all went as a team, and every day you would go as a team. Someone would decide where to go. You'd go out together. You'd sit down for lunch. You'd make small talk for about 10-15 minutes. The food would come. As soon as the food came, the conversation stopped. And it was just eat. And then as soon as you'd finished eating, you'd leave. Then you'd go to get a coffee, and then you'd go back to the office. And that process might take about half an hour. And then what happened after that was really interesting to me. Because a lot of people would then sit in their chair and just nod off for 20 minutes and have a little bit of a nap, which was great. And then what happened after that was even more intriguing. Everyone would open up their drawer and then have a toothbrush and toothpaste sitting there. And they'd all go off to the bathrooms and clean their teeth. I thought that was fantastic. It's good dental hygiene. But something that was completely foreign to me, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so bizarre. 1 minute they're sleeping, the next minute they're brushing their teeth. Interesting. Business deals are based on relationships. So I think this is fairly, perhaps hopefully obvious to you, is that relationships are really key in Korea. And I'm quite a direct person. If I need something, I'll just ask for it. Whereas the Koreans are quite relationship focused, which means that you have to spend a lot of time with people to build that relationship, build that trust, and then from there that's when you can start to do business if everything's going quite well. So what this meant is that after work, most days, you would go out to dinner with your colleagues or your clients, and you go have dinner and maybe some drinks, and then maybe you'll go to Ita and have some more drinks, then maybe you'll go to Samcha and have some more drinks, usually at which point I was excused. But then sometimes it just kept on going and kept on going. So the workday, unlike the workday for us, typically finishes at 5 or 5:30 or 6. For Koreans, you know, you'd leave the office at 5:30 or 6, but then often there'd be drinks or haeshik, drinks and dinner with your colleagues and clients. So it just goes to show that the workday can be quite extended in Korea, and that's just expected as part of your work. For me, I was probably expected to go out 2 to 3 times a week, but for my host dad, he was going out about 4 to 5 times a week. So what that meant is that he left the house at 6:37 every morning, but then didn't get home until quite late every night. So for his wife and for his son, he didn't get to spend a lot of time with them during the week, which made the weekends extremely important for him to spend time with his family. That was deemed, weekends were like critical and crucial because they were family time. So the point here is that it's Korean culture or Korean Australian culture, there's no right or wrong, it's just simply different, but it's really good to understand why they're different and why they have different ways of doing things. In terms of dress, again, not too different to Australian culture, but one thing that I did notice was that whereas in Korea you can wear very, 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 very short skirts, you wouldn't typically wear a blouse, like a singlet top or a blouse that shows your chest. So for women, we are expected to cover up in the chest area, although shorter skirts seem to be fine. Any questions so far? No? Okay. Some more things I'll just go through quickly. Leadership styles, it's very hierarchical, so the decisions are made at the top, whereas I guess in Australia you might be included a little bit more in the decision making, and you might say, hey Ellen, what do you think about this? Even if I'm the big boss and Ellen's down here, I might say, hey Ellen, what's your opinion? In Korea it tends to be a little bit more hierarchical with the decision being made at the top, and less kind of input at the lower levels. Respect to seniors, as I mentioned before, you earn and develop trust through drinking after hours. Lack of personal time and work-life balance, although I think this is changing. I think with the younger generation these days, the Korean students are being more and more educated overseas and being exposed to the Western kind of world, and therefore I think they've got more of an appreciation of this work-life balance or well-being, this well-being trend. And so I think this is something that's going to change quite significantly in the next couple of generations, is that we'll see less tolerance for this haeshik culture and more people leaving work earlier and on time to focus on their well-being and also their family as well. And promotions, traditionally, this is very traditionally based on length of service rather than ability, but again, this is changing quite rapidly now in Korea. Business etiquette, again, I think this is probably self-explanatory. Does anyone know, so this is Park Geun-hye and Bill Gates. Does anyone know I think it's quite rude in Australian culture anyway, but does anyone know kind of what's a bit off on this picture? What's Bill Gates doing or not doing that's a bit, yeah?
Pocket in his hand.
Yeah, hands in his pockets, yeah. I think that's quite rude in Australia anyway. But still, it's very disrespectful in Korea. So when you meet someone, especially someone of, maybe not now, but when she was president, Park Geun-hye, you would typically use 2 hands to shake your hand and a slight bow. But having your hand in your pocket is quite disrespectful in Korea. So show respect, figure out where you sit in that hierarchy and make sure that you act in accordance with where you sit in that hierarchy. Show interest in Korea and quote their successes. Koreans are really proud of their history and their economic success, especially following the Korean War. So it's nice if you can just show that you understand that and quote it back to them. Don't criticise others in public. I hope that you wouldn't do that anyway. Call people by their title. So unlike here where we go, hey Andy, how you going? It would be Professor Andy, or if it's a manager, it will be Manager Kim, or Director Park, or Chairman Choi. You would address them as their title plus surname rather than hey Andy. And come with lots of business cards. So business cards are extremely important in Korea. So if you do go to Korea, I encourage you to make up some business cards so that you've got something to give people. So the second takeaway is to do an internship in Korea. As I said, the best way to learn is to experience working in Korea firsthand. Of course, I can share my experiences. You can read lots of books, but the only way for me, or the best way to learn, is to experience it yourself. Go through those emotions yourself and experience it firsthand. An internship is generally unpaid, but you gain something more than just money. You gain work experience, you gain experience in the Korean business culture, you get to improve and practice your language skills, you expand your network and your resilience, and you get to gain resilience. So my point here is that just don't not take an internship because it's unpaid. You've just got to have the right kind of attitude or frame of mind when approaching these internships. And as I say here, I think the experience that you will get far outweighs any money value that you're going to receive from an internship. Has anyone done an internship either in Australia or Korea?
In Korea.
In Korea, yeah. Where did you do your internship?
The Human Rights Commission in Seoul.
Excellent.
But I know some of the experiences I had were quite similar to yours.
Yeah.
But,
And that's what makes it
office
fun.
was quite interesting.
Yeah, that's what makes it fun. Because people act differently. It piques your curiosity and it's like, why are people doing this? So, yeah, it's good fun.
Can I ask a question about the internship? Did you ever get the sense that there might be a bit of light at the end of the tunnel with POSCO, that you built up some kind of relationship? They might say, oh, can you come back, or can you do something for us in
Absolutely.
Korea, in Australia when you go back? Or
yeah. At this stage I was still quite young. I think I was in third year and I still had 2 more years to go after that year. So, sorry, 3 more years because I had to finish that year. So for me, but it was a relationship building exercise for me. And the really nice point to make about it now is that, as I mentioned, I can't remember don't know if you remember, but from the start, our counterpart in Korea is the Korea Australia Business Council, and the chairman of that organisation is the chairman of POSCO. So coincidentally, my boss when I was at POSCO 10 years ago is who I'm dealing with now, which is a really cool thing. Like, 10 years later and we're still in contact and we're still talking about what happened 10 years ago at that night out in Gangnam. So it's really quite fun. So yes, I think in a very relationship oriented culture, you never know where these opportunities are going to get you. And because I had formed that relationship already with POSCO, it was I was known to them, I was trusted by them, and it was a lot easier for me to go ahead and do business with them. Okay, number 4, where to find a job. Okay, so it's enough about me. I feel like I've been talking about me the whole time. Let's talk about you guys. Oh, I've got to talk about me for just a little bit longer. And I wanted to share my career journey with you after university. So after graduating from Monash in Melbourne, I worked for 3 years at KPMG, which is one of the big accounting firms, but I wasn't formally connected to the Korean team. So one of the first things that I did when I got to KPMG was that I looked up the head of the Korean business practice. And I sent him an email. I said, hey, I like Korea. I want to get to know what you're doing. I'm really interested to get involved. This is me. Can we catch up for coffee? And we caught up for coffee and I formed a relationship with the head of the Korean business desk. Fast forward, I then did a Hamer Scholarship, which was that Victorian government program that I was talking about earlier. Then worked for AsiaLink, and then now I'm working at the Australia Korea Business Council. But my point here is that the relationship that I built at KPMG all those years ago, that guy that I had coffee with, he tapped me on the shoulder for this job at AKBC 5 years later. So after 5 years, my relationship with someone I met at KPMG gave me the opportunity to find my job at the AKBC. So the takeaway here is, if we start with maybe takeaway 4 might be better to start with, start building your connections and relationships now, because it might take you 5 years for that right opportunity to come along. It might take you 5 years to build that relationship and connection with someone that can then present an opportunity to you 5 years down the track. Or it might take 5 years for that opportunity to come along. So it might take 5 years, it might take 10 years, it might take 15 years, but the point is start trying to build those connections and relationships now, so that in 5 or 10 years' time you're presented with a whole heap of opportunities. So how do you do that? Start going to business events. Ask for a mentor and start asking people for a coffee to ask them for advice and say, hey, I'm really interested in Korean politics. I want to know where this can get me. Do you mind if I shout you for a coffee and I want half an hour of your time just for some strategic guidance? And I think 9 times out of 10, I mean, Ellen, if someone came up to you with a very pointed request asking for advice, as long as it's not, hey, how was your weekend, for half an hour, if you really had some direction and wanted some specific advice, I'm sure 9 times out of 10, the person would either happily go for a coffee with you or just share some of their experiences over email. So I strongly encourage you to start doing that now, so that in the coming years you've got maybe 10 or 12 relationships built that might present opportunities to you in the future. And again, who knows when that right opportunity might come along, but if you never build that relationship at the start, then you're never going to end up with opportunities at the end. Takeaway number 3 is that your job with Korea might take 5 years to get. So for me, I had 3 years at KPMG, which was management consulting. It wasn't related to Korea at all. Then I went to Korea, and then I went to AsiaLink. Unfortunately, that wasn't related to Korea either. So it took me 5 years to find kind of my current job, which I'm completely obsessed with and absolutely love, and it's all about Korea. So it might take you 5 years. But the next point here is that language alone will probably not be enough for someone to employ you. So what I'm saying is, even though you've got Korean language, which is fantastic, it's this other core set of skills that you need that makes you employable to a firm. So for me, that was my commerce background. If you're doing engineering, that's absolutely fantastic. If you're doing education, if you're doing medicine, if you're doing acrobatics, I don't care what it is, that's your core skill set. And unless you want to be an interpreter or a translator, it's probably this core skill set that you need to start developing and focus on to get you the job. And then you need to find an opportunity that you can marry your Korean skills with. Does that make sense? And I hope that doesn't put you off, because it's often the Korean skill set that will give you a one-up on everybody else. But when you look at job opportunities in Seek or advertisements, more often than not, it will have required, and then a set of core skills that you need, and then preferred. And that's where they might put the Korean language. So develop your core skill set, understand the possible opportunities with Korea in your field, and then acknowledge that an opportunity with Korea might come later in your career. Okay, so where did I find these opportunities, and where can you find these opportunities? The first point here is just to show you the history of the two-way trade relationship between Australia and Korea, and as you can see, it's increasing, and hopefully it's going to continue along that trend. Korea is Australia's 3rd largest trading partner and 4th largest two-way trading partners. Now that statistic always surprises people, and a lot of Australians do not know how significant Korea is as a trading partner to Australia. But this is a great statistic for you to know, because this will give you lots of opportunities in the future. You've just got to figure out what sectors, and I'll help you with that. In terms of services only accounts for 6% of two-way trade between Australia and Korea. But when you think about Australia's GDP, I think it's about 80% of Australia's GDP is services, and I think Korea is somewhat similar, maybe a little bit less. So this goes to show that the future of the services trade between Australia and Korea is set to boom, and education is one of those. and investment between the two countries has grown rapidly and diversified over the last decade, but it is from a very, very low base. There's not a lot of Korean investment in Australia, and there's not a lot of Australian investment in Korea compared to other countries. So again, Korea is Australia's third largest export market. So there's probably no surprise that China's number 1, Japan's number 2, probably not so surprising. But then what surprises a lot of people is that Korea is number 3. Most people would say, I think United States, maybe India, maybe New Zealand. But not a lot of people, if you go home tonight and ask your mum and dad what are the top 3 trading partners for Australia, I doubt that a lot of people would be able to say China, Japan, Korea. And if we flip it the other way, Australia is also a significant market to Korea. It's Australia's Korea's 6th largest export market, so not as significant as Korea is to Australia, but still quite significant for Korea. Okay, so we've gone through the stats very high level. We're now going to take a step beneath that in KK and say, all right, we've got an important trade and investment relationship. What are we trading? So does anyone see that? So does anyone know what our top exports to Korea are? What do we send to Korea? What did you see?
Iron or coal.
Well done. Yeah, and what's the third one? Does anyone know? Agriculture. Yeah, absolutely. So beef. So has anyone been to Korea? Who's been to Korea? Oh, there's a lot of people. Okay, cool. And who, when you go to a restaurant, you know how you can see where the meat comes from? Hojusan? Yeah. So more often, maybe 50% of the time when you go to a Korean restaurant, or is it Lotte, or McDonald's or whatever, they'll often have Hojusan or Miguksan written next to it. And that's because we export a whole heap of beef to Korea. So number 1 and 2, as you rightly pointed out, iron ore and coal, then beef, and probably just agriculture. So there's 2 kind of themes here. One is energy and natural resources. So Korea has pretty much no natural resources. Australia has a whole heap of natural resources. And so we've got complementary economies. So Korea imports about 97% of their energy requirements from overseas. And so that makes Australia a significant partner to Korea, because without us, they wouldn't have any energy. So iron ore and coal are the top 2, and then agriculture. Again, I don't think it's 97%, but it might be something like 60% of Korea's food they need to import, mainly because they just don't have the agricultural land that we have. And so agriculture and mining or resources are probably the top 2 opportunities for you guys to start thinking about in terms of jobs and where this trading relationship goes. If we look the reverse way, if you want to work for a Korean company, you've got refined petroleum, cars, heating and cooling equipment, electronics. So basically you've got your Samsungs, your LGs, your Hyundais and your Kias. That's kind of where the importing, or where the imports from Korea are coming from. The other thing to note is that we do have a Korea-Australia Free Trade Agreement, so we call it the CAFTA, and that's creating lots of opportunities, mainly in agriculture, by way of reduced tariffs. Okay, so we've now had a look at the high-level stats, then we've gone and looked at what we import and export, so the next level down is what companies are doing business between Australia and Korea. I'm just conscious of time, so I might skip through these slides quite quickly. But in terms of Australian companies active in Korea, have a look. If you want to take a photo of the slide. Again, you've got the mining companies up the top, so hopefully you've heard of a few of these. BHP, Roy Hill, Rio Tinto, Santos, Woodside, Whitehaven Coal. These are some of the so again, I don't know what all your disciplines are, but if you're in mining or engineering or anything that can kind of do with energy and resources, these are the companies that you could start targeting or start looking at grad programs for. Then you've got the universities. You've got Swinburne, Monash, UniSA, Melbourne, they're all doing things with Korea. Then, is anyone doing finance?
There are quite a few finance and economics students doing Korean
Great.
studies.
That's probably one of the biggest opportunities is in finance. So you've got AMP, QIC, IFM, Hastings, which may or may not be known to you, but they're fund managers who are increasingly attracting a lot of capital from Korea and then investing that money in either Australian infrastructure or global infrastructure. So that's a booming opportunity if finance is your major. ANZ have an office in Korea, so again, if you are thinking about going to Korea, why don't you call up ANZ and ask them for an internship? I know that they offer them. And then you've got some of the agricultural products, which you may or not be familiar with on the right-hand side, as well as Blackmores. Swiss is also another company which will be really interesting to see what happens over the next 12 months. They're making to look quite a big entrance into the Korean market. So there's some of the Australian companies that you can just start to think about getting jobs with. And then if we flip it the other way around, here are some of the Korean companies that have an office in Australia. And I've just highlighted some of the ones in Victoria for those of you that are interested in Victoria. We've got Nutri Biotech, which manufactures the not tablets, what do you call them? The tablets for Blackmores and Swiss. The
Supplements.
what's it called?
Supplements.
Supplements, yeah. So they manufacture them in Dandenong South. Does everyone know Amore Pacific? Yeah. They've chosen Melbourne as their headquarter office in Australia. So that's a great opportunity for you to hit them up, ask them for an internship, find a job at one of their stores in Melbourne Central or whatever. LG Chem, anyone doing kind of like engineering or renewable energy? No, okay, maybe not so much. Lotte Duty Free, they've just purchased JR Duty Free store. So if you've been to Swanston and Burke, I think it is, you'll see that they've just entered the Australian market just in the last 12 months. So here are some Korean companies that you can start to look at again for job opportunities.
Quick question. You,
Yeah.
you said you can just ring up one of these companies and say, can I have an internship?
Maybe not directly like that, but yeah.
But I mean, can you do this? I mean,
Yeah, why not?
is that
A bit gutsy. Yeah, I think ideally the process would be that you would start to go to business events and then meet the right person and then start that relationship, ask them for a coffee and then ask them for an internship maybe. That would be a better way to go about it. But sure, if you've got the balls too, if you've got the guts, why not? Call them up.
One of Monash graduates just started working at Lotte Duty Free.
Perfect.
Yeah, Dune, so she might be
great.
Dune Smith.
Done it? Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, so use your contacts as
Yeah.
well to get into the door of some of these.
She's an EA to CEO, so
Nice.
yeah,
Awesome.
why not?
You can just start by sending an email. I mean, what's the worst that can happen?
No.
They say no, or they don't send you a response. That's the worst that can happen, and if that's the worst that can happen, then why not try?
What is Monash doing? I mean, I assume they're recruiting South Korean students, but are they doing other stuff as well? Are they planning a...
Oh, you would
They
don't want to
don't
me,
tell us.
but
They don't
oh
tell
really?
us anything.
No, the only other connection I have with Monash University is in terms of where you could work at Monash University, you've got international student recruitment. So working with perhaps Korean partners to attract Korean students to come to Monash University. You could work for perhaps the Victorian government. They've got an education-specific person that works out of the Seoul office, and I think there's also one at the Victorian government in Melbourne who is dedicated to education. But the other link there as well is that the MBA program that Monash runs sends their group of students to Korea every year, I think, or every 2 years. But most universities will have an international engagement office that will be targeted or focused at attracting or recruiting international students. And Korea is one of the major markets, so there would be opportunities within Monash University. Yeah.
For jobs like that, what kind of degree is that usually suited for? Is it for education or like international relations?
Yeah, probably more so international relations. Could probably come with depending on the specific job, could probably come in with a whole heap of different backgrounds. As long as you've got that core set of skills. Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about a graduate entry position, I don't think whether you're from science or whether you're from international relations, I think that would all help. I don't think it would be too specific. Okay, key organisations. KOTRA, which is a Korean government organisation, which is kind of like, I don't know if you're familiar with Austrade, but Austrade is a federal government body which promotes trade and investment between Australia and Korea. So that's another really good, they've got offices all around Australia and also in Korea. So another great opportunity, again, if you are going to Korea and want an internship, you know, call up Austrade. Ask them for an internship and say, hey, I'm in Korea, I'm looking for an internship, happy for it to be unpaid, but I really love some experience. I've majored in international relations, I'd love to work in the education section, could I catch up with you for a coffee? Again, what's the worst that can happen? I mean, at least you've got the guts and the confidence to do that, right? So hopefully if it's not, hopefully someone will respond and say, yeah, sure, I'll take you for a coffee. If they may not have an opportunity available, they might be able to suggest a few other places for you to apply and do an internship. The Consul General of the Republic of Korea, they do internships.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. Oh no. Okay, scratch that. OzCham, which is kind of the AKBC, so that's my organisation, is the kind of equivalent in Korea. I know that they regularly take interns, so you can ask them for internship opportunities if you are going to Korea. The Australian Embassy, because it's a federal department, I'm not sure if they would take interns, but again, this is all kind of the organisations that you could just start to like on Facebook or on LinkedIn and just start to get a feel and flavour of where the opportunities are between Australia and Korea. Just stay in touch with them and keep an eye on their websites for things, and they might be able to help you along the way. Okay, we're almost at the end. Tips and tricks. CV and cover letter, this is quite generic. Tailor them to the job opportunity. So at the AKBC we take interns, and I am about to go on mat leave, so not until March next year when I return will I be taking more interns, but that is an opportunity if you would like to take that up. But time and time again I get CVs and cover letters which are so generic and have obviously been copied and pasted from other job applications that it's just like, oh really? So just my advice here is take the time to tailor them to the specific job opportunity. That might take you an extra half an hour to hour, but you do notice when someone just copies and pastes from an old cover letter and there might be one or two spelling errors, and for me that's an automatic, well, you haven't invested half an hour to read over it, so why would I invest time to interview you? Perfect them. Get an internship. Okay, sorry, the Korean consulate doesn't offer anymore. AKBC offers opportunities, but time and time again, especially if they're a small business, they might be open, they might not traditionally have a formal internship program, but they might be open to an intern if you say, hey, I'm available 3 days a week, I'm really keen to learn, and you have the right attitude. Start building relationships, have the right attitude. So a quick little anecdote is that I've got an intern at the moment and she's absolutely fantastic. She's a university student just like you at La Trobe University. And one thing that she does to me is just a standout. For her job interview that I did with her, she was half an hour early. And I hired her on the day, and every day since, she has been 10 minutes early to work every single day. And for her that just means getting up 10 minutes earlier, but for me the impact that has on me as an employer is, oh my gosh, this girl is so keen, so enthusiastic, so energetic, she wants to be here, she's got a beautiful attitude, and that goes an incredibly long way. So it might just take an extra 10 minutes out of your day, but the impact that that has is profound. So just a little bit of advice, if you are going to meet someone for coffee, or if you are asking for an internship, or if you are showing up to something, be 10 minutes early. Get up 10 minutes earlier, or catch an earlier bus. But that shows that you're committed, it shows that you've got a great attitude, that you want to be there, and that you're not wasting the other person's time. So something very generic, but a nice little tip. And seek job alerts. So what I even have on my, not that I'm looking for a job, but just to kind of keep up to date with the market, is I've got on the Seek, the Seek to find jobs, I've got a keyword alert, and I've put career in there. So every time a job comes up that has the word career, I'm alerted and I can just read through it just to see kind of what jobs are out there related to career. So when Amore Pacific started, Lotte Duty Free started, they had some ads up. So it might just be a quick way for you to every day just get a little notification to see what kind of jobs are available that are related to career. And then the last one is understand the key organisations in the relationship. So top 5 takeaways, go on exchange if you haven't already, do an internship, be patient and focus on your core skill set, because your job with career might take 5 years to get. Start building connections and relationships now, and attitude is everything. Ta-da!